What is up, YouTube? HPJ here, and I'm coming at you guys with some information from Yu-Gi-Oh! Next Duelist pack, the Duelist of the Pyronics, which, even though it sounds Pyro, no, it's going to be focusing on Earth attributed Duelist. And here's one that took the cake. Ishizu Ishtar. She's going to have cards in this Duelist pack, and there's a lot of things about Miss Ishtar that we have to cover because, first of all, this is the first time I'm ever focusing on Ishizu as not only a duelist but a character in the Yu-Gi-Oh card game. The second is her deck itself because there's so many amalgamations of it, and for this amalgam, for what they're doing with the duelist pack, they're going to focus on a combination of both of what she's known for in the manga and anime, and then what she's known for in current video games in the modern era. So, for those who don't know who she is, she's Ishtar. If you already hinted at the name Ishtar, yes, she is a family member to Merrick. She is his older sister. Ishizu was part of the Battle City arc. She was the first one to introduce Kaiba to the Egyptian god cards, tell him about the lore of the past, gave him Obelisk the Tormentor, and told him to, if he wanted to seek out true power and he wanted to unravel his destiny, to, find a way to get Yugi to also conspire into the same situation. So that's what gave him the inspiration to create the Battle City tournament. She entered as well and even became a finalist. She was the lucky challenger to face, of course, Seto. She unfortunately didn't win against Seto, but the duel itself, wow, what a duel it was. It took basically reversing Seto's strategy at the time to hurt his opponent's deck, or using cards like Virus Cannon and stuff, to flip it on him and then take advantage of him being so thirsty for power to summon Obelisk that it left him wide open to the tricks that she was doing on her own. With a lot of the cards she had, because she was the owner of one of the forbidden cards of the series, the Exchange of the Spirits, which the owner Exchange of the Spirits, for those who don't know, was completely nastier than what the modern version of it is with the errata that it has currently, because the errata states that both players have to have at least 15 cards in their deck, in their graveyard, both of them. They have to have 15 cards in their graveyard, and then they will exchange their graveyard for their deck. Now, the older version, the original print of Exchange of Spirits, said that it didn't matter who had the 15 cards. It was one player, and a player has to have at least 15. I think it was you have to have 15 cards in your graveyard or more. Paid 1,000 life points, and then you would swap your graveyards with your deck. And because of how the duel was set up, basically Ishizu took everything that Kaiba had and literally sent it to the graveyard with the little bit of support cards he had in the graveyard as his deck. So it wasn't really too much. And because of this, Ishizu basically played Kaiba by also taking advantage of one other thing she had access to, her Millennium item, the Millennium Necklace. And it's funny how a lot of people associate her with her Millennium item because it was the item that allows her to foresee the future. In the anime, and I do believe in the manga, it backfires on Ishizu, and it causes her to the future she foresees gets intercepted by the Millennium Rod, which if you've watched the anime and the manga, you know that the Millennium Rod belonged to ancient Seto from Egypt, and that was his Millennium because he was priest Seto, and he was one of the kings. He was part of the king's court. And the Pharaoh's court, I'm sorry. Well, King's court, same thing. So, reacting onto Kaiba, it forced Kaiba to, well, it didn't force Kaiba. It showed Kaiba the future, and Blue Eyes was calling to Kaiba to summon him to the field to beat Ishizu. And he did. He beat Ishizu with blue eyes by sacrificing Obelisk, who Ishizu put blast by a tribute within Obelisk the Tormentor. Which was the trap card she set face down, knowing that Kaiba was using Soul Exchange, that he's going to tribute her monsters to summon Obelisk and try to win him the duel with Obelisk's attack, which backfired on him if he would have done blast with tribute, but because he tributed the monster that she set the trap into, the trap did not go off and she ended up losing the duel. She did eventually give the necklace to Yugi, who he foresaw his own future, but that's for a different story. This story is going to focus on her and the amalgamation of cards that she has. Because in the show, she uses three particular monsters: Agito, Kelvek, and Mudara. And and the crazy thing is that those three Earth fairies aren't really much. They're not. Um, in most video games between 2001 to about 2000 I want to say 2007, she did a bit of a transformation of deck. It went from light beat down to light beat down plus life gain to Gravekeepers in a span of almost a decade. So now her current modern plays do include her Gravekeepers, because she, of course, herself is a Gravekeeper, and they want to keep allude to that. They also included, her three fairies, her Blaster Tribute, and her Soul Ever Exchange of Spirits, as some tech cards as well. Because Ishizu's deck it's very, very heavily focused on that, and the aspect of her overall connections to ancient Egypt. So, with that said, they didn't try to do any spirits for this because I just took half of the video explaining to you guys Ishizu Ishtar. So now we can get into the meat of it, which a lot of these cards are going to support Exchange of Spirits and have effects based on Exchange of Spirits location. So first off is Keldeo, the Possessed Statue. Level 4 Earth Attribute Fairy type monster with 1200 attack and 16 defense. You only use this card's first and second effect once per turn each. You can discard one other Earth Fairy monster to summon this card from your hand, and if you do, you can add one Exchange of Spirit or one card that mentions that card from your deck to your hand. Quick effect, you can banish this card from your field or graveyard, then target up to 5 cards in either player's graveyard, shuffle them into the deck, and if Exchange of Spirits is not in your graveyard or field upon activation, you can target up to 3 cards instead. Then we have Mudora, the Castless Oracle. Level 4, Earth Attribute Fairy type monster, 1500 attack, 1800 defense. You're going to use this card's first and second effect once per turn each. You can discard one other Earth monster. Just assume this card from your hand. Then you can place one Gravekeeper's Trap from your deck face up in the solo chat card zone. Quick effect, you can banish this card from your graveyard or field to target up to 5 cards in any graveyard. Shuffle them back into the deck, and if Exchange of Spirits is not on your field or in your graveyard activation, you can only add 3 cards instead. Then Agito, the Ancient Century, level 4 Earth Attribute Fairy type monster, 1500 attack, 1800 defense. You can only use this card's first and second effect once per turn each. If this card is sent from your hand and or deck to your opponent's graveyard, you can just summon. If a card is sent from your opponent's hand or deck to your opponent's graveyard, you can just summon this card from your hand. Then you can just summon a level 4 Earth Attributed Fairy type monster from your graveyard, except for Agito, the Ancient Century. If this card is sent from your hand or deck to the graveyard, you can send the top 5 cards of each deck to the graveyard, and then if Exchange of Spirits is in your graveyard, you can send the top 5 cards of either deck to the graveyard. Then we have Gravekeepers Trap. Continuous trap card. You can only use this card's second and third effect once per turn. While Exchange of Spirits is in your graveyard, your opponent cannot activate the effects of cards in the graveyard or summon monsters from it. The second effect is during the main phase, you can discard one card to add one Gravekeeper monster or one Earth Fairy monster from your deck to your hand. During your opponent's draw phase, before they draw, you can declare one card name. Reveal that card. Reveal the card your opponent draws for their normal draw And if it is the declare card, send it to the graveyard. We have reversal of death and of despair and hope. No, that could be called in TCG. Exchange of the heart. You can only activate one card with this card's name once per turn. If you control three or more fairy Earth attribute fairy type monsters, you can send as many monsters on the field to the graveyard as possible, and then each player summons from their opponent's graveyard to their field up to the number of monsters that were sent to their graveyard by the card's effect. If exchange of spirits is in the graveyard, you can set one trap card directly from your deck and can be activated this turn. Blast, bomb held by fate. Blast held by fate. You can activate one card. You can activate the first and second effect of this card name once per turn each. When your opponent's monster declares an attack, you can destroy one face-up monster they control with the highest attack, your choice of a tie. And if you do, inflict damage to your opponent equal to them equal to the destroyed monster's original attack. Then, if Exchange of Spirits is not in your graveyard, you take the damage instead of your opponent. If this card is sent from your hand or deck to the graveyard, you can target one level 4 Earth Fairy monster in your graveyard and add it to your hand. Then we have the reprint of Exchange of the Spirit. So, yeah, this is the long list of cards that are getting printed for Ishizu. The big hit, of course, is talk about Gravekeepers Trap, which, of course, this card's artwork features the beautiful Ishizu Ishtar. Looks like she is attacking with something or calling out to something. And of course, next to it, that is the lights. This is an awesome card, mainly because it has the ability that during the main phase, you can discard a card to search for a Gravekeeper monster, or you can add an Earth Fairy monster from your deck to your hand. So with the effects of the monsters that she has, the ability to search for a Gravekeeper, it's a really good resource for them. Even if you don't use one or both of the effects to search, you can at least search for a Gravekeeper in that here. I'm actually shocked that they haven't printed any Gravekeepers, but that is Konami. The other effect to basically declare a name, I think this only works as a gimmick type of situation, because if you're dealing with the effects of the monsters, then most likely you're going to be able to know what decks they're playing and then call out the cards there. The first effect is pretty much Necro Valley, but you need to change the spirits in the graveyard to even have it count to akin to Necro Valley. With that said, of course, the Exchange of the Heart. This features the three monsters that Ishizu uses in her duel against Kaiba, and of course, Obelisk of Tormentor itself on the other end. Basically a monster swap if you think about it. So you really just want this to focus on how many monsters your opponent has more than you, and then take advantage of it, and also having monsters on your side of the field that you know your opponent can't summon from the graveyard, which can work in your favor. And then the fact that you can set a trap card directly from your deck and then uh, play it, but they heavily rely on exchange of spirits. Like all of these cards, for the most part, are going to rely on exchange of spirits, which, mind you, was a big part of Ishizu's gameplay within the the show itself when it came to her duel with Kaiba. This is also similar to Blast Held by Fate, because of course that is Obelisk the Tormentor himself, and it was a whole twist of fate that was supposed to initially give her the victory so that she could help Yugi free her brother, but that did not work out the way she thought it was. We'll talk about Exchange of Spirits later, but I think we've already talked about it enough. So let's look at the retrains of Ajido, Keldeo, and Mudora. They're not bad. They're actually pretty decent. I think more so the fact that Keldeo and Medora have this special summon effect. You can probably use these cards in some wacky hijinks just for the fact that it's discard one Earth Fairy to special summon it. I'm pretty sure you can think of a couple of decks that have some Earth Fairies that wouldn't mind their monsters being graveyard, and this can easily be a floater, or not a floater, an extender. Like both of them can easily be extenders, Keldeo and Mudora. But I think for the most part, that may not be the case. They might just be restricted to their own attribute, but I mean their own archetypes. But give somebody some time, they'll do some wacky hijinks with it. The only thing is, a lot of the stuff that you want to do, you're going to have to heavily rely on exchange of spirits and sending it to the graveyard as soon as possible. You can do that with cards like Foolish Burial of Goods. Same thing with Ajido, the Ancient Century. It's heavily reliant on other cards that either A, are exchanging spirits, or the other Earth Fairies to trigger their abilities to send this to the graveyard just so that it can be summoned, or your opponent sending stuff to the graveyard, which 9 out of 10, most decks do that. So, like I said, these are not bad cards. It's more so the gimmick cards for the anime, just to hold on to whatever they can for the series. Um, the reprint of Exchange of Spirits, I'm sure we're gonna have that here in the TCG, just off of the fact that there's gonna be two various cards based off of each other. Not exactly gonna have the same quality of effects, but just the artwork themselves alone, and just actually there is a monster that's not here because Solda, Kelbeck, yeah, because Mudora was not. Oh no, Mudora was a card of Ishizu's. I'm surprised. Yeah, Zolga didn't get a card. Maybe later on, because 3 out of the 4 monsters she used. I'm sorry because I forgot. Um, I think 5. Hold on, Ajido is one. Kelbeck is the other. Cause that's Ajido. That's Keldeo. Was Keldeo a monster for Ishizu? Hey man, I have been. Or I think it is, and it just died early in the duel because of Kaiba. But yeah, I mean, still not too bad because I forgot about Zolga. And then again, like Ishizu's duel wasn't that. It was monumental only for the fact that it was a reverse of fate for plot reasons, I guess. But yeah, it is what it is. So let me know what you guys think of Ishizu's new additions to her deck. Do you guys think these cards will be played? What ideas you would have with them? And do you potentially see some more stuff in the future for her, considering the monsters and stuff that she has? So, with that all said and done, thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel, as it helps out tremendously. You can also hit the notification bell so you guys can be informed of when I do upload more content to the channel, as well as hitting the subscription button, because that helps me out tremendously. Description box below lists all of my social media accounts. You guys can catch me on Twitch at twitch.tv/HarpiePlayerJoe, where I do live stream and play tons of video games, so also support me there. So with that said and done, thanks everybody for watching. I'll catch you people next time. HPJ signing out. Take care.